Yo, what's up? Okay, I'm gonna get a little bit of vibes going real quick. Um, because I'm gonna wait for a couple people to hop in. Mm. Oh, there we go. Okay. We're going live. Give me a second. I should have set up Insta first and I hadn't set it up yet. We're going to be talking about DEI on here because I think it's such an important conversation that needs to be had. So I've got a couple things here rolling. That's on me, y'all. I'm gonna give y'all a couple minutes to trickle in. And we're gonna have some fun today. We're gonna have some fun today, y'all. All right. All right, here we go. All right. So I needed to get live on all of the things. Yo, what's up, Harshita? Just wanted to say what's up. We're going to be talking. Oh, I've been great. I appreciate that. Thank you. I've been great. So we're going to be talking. Y'all, sorry, I'm turning on all the things. I've got multiple things going. So I'm going to be talking DEI and really what's actually next. You know, I think part of this conversation has to be had. And so when we think about DEI, number one, we're going to take a nice little history lesson. Then after we talk about what DEI actually is, I really want to share what's next. And I'm not sharing this from the perspective of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, oh, I'm just talking. I was an executive inside of a Fortune 50 company. So I've seen all. If I haven't seen it, I've heard it from other DEI professionals. And I want you to notice that on here, I said ex-DEI professional. And there's a reason why there's an X in front of that. And I'll put a little bit of my story about why I'm technically not in the DEI field anymore. So give me a moment. I'm just making sure that I can see everybody's stuff. I've got all the lives going. So what's up to y'all on Insta? Drop some hops, some what's up. Let me know. I see you. I see y'all on here. So let's talk DEI. So one of the reasons why I think this conversation is so important is because the conversation and the narrative around DEI has gotten hijacked. Okay. So when we think about DEI in and of itself, let's take a little trip real lane, because I think it's important to understand where all of this started. DEI actually did not start with the murder of George Floyd. The whole entire start of DEI actually started in the affirmative action, equal opportunity expansion. Why was this? Well, because people were trying to enter the workforce, particularly women, and could not enter into the workforce, or were struggling to enter into the workforce. So hold on, y'all. I don't know what's going on, but StreamYard is acting a little wonky. So here's the deal. I just realized I'm like all glitch. I love technology. Sorry, Insta. Y'all are coming in nice and clear. I tell you, technology. Probably gonna have to kick StreamYard to the curb because I'm freezing. All right, here we go. I don't know what's going on with StreamYard, but they need to get it to pulling a ton of bandwidth from my computer. So let me see. All right, here we go. Hopefully this is a little At least Insta, I know y'all got a crystal clear. Here's what I'll say: if you're not following me, let me drop my Insta. You can go follow me on there, because just in case, LinkedIn is acting every like StreamYard is. All right, there we go. Because I know I'm not coming clear. All right, let's try this again. Like, why is it so grainy? I'm gonna have to have a conversation, StreamYard. All right, here we go. So when we talk about DEI and how DEI actually started, okay, what you saw from DEI, and actually let me do this. I'm gonna shut down some streams and see if that helps. All right. So what ends up happening with DEI is this. You have to understand the beginnings of DEI. DEI started in the 70s with affirmative action. From affirmative action came corporate diversity, like corporate diversity programs began to emerge. By then, it still was not officially like called DEI. They were just diversity programs. And so there's actually a really great Harvard Business Review talks about the paradigm shift and how it actually shifted in DEI and like what all of that was about. So then from there, then you start to get in the 90s, they start talking about the business imperative for DEI. So when now they're going in and saying, okay, you had the Glass Ceiling Commission. In the 1990s, you had the Americans with Disability Act, right? Expanding for individuals with disabilities. Then you start to get into the 2000s. And then this is when you start to hear more about diversity and inclusion. This is where, if you're working in organizations, you have employee resource groups. This is where those groups start to come about. And then now we're into the 2010s, right? And that's really where you start to have equity and social movements driving a lot of that. So this is where you start to see diversity, equity, and inclusion coming up. And I just so groovy. I just realized that mug was still playing. All right. So then you go in. Sorry, y'all. If y'all are on Insta, you can't hear the music that's coming through the lives. So then from there, the 2010s, this is when you start to see more conversation around diversity, equity, and inclusion. In 2017, a good example of that was Me Too, right? And Black Lives Matter in 2013 started gaining momentum all the way up until the murder of George Floyd. Okay, companies started hiring your chief diversity officers, chief culture officers, and then you had 2020, right? And this was the murder of George Floyd, and that is what ultimately sparked a lot of conversation and DEI initiatives with organizations. So all of this started happening. Now, here's the catch-22. I have a theory about why it caught fire in 2020. Here's what happened. The murder of unarmed people of color is not new. I think the paradigm shift that happened in 2020 was everybody was home. And then what happened was people couldn't busy it away. Everybody's home during the pandemic. So the news is there. That's all we have. We're all at home. Right. And so then there were more eyes on what was actually happening. That's why I think it became what it was. And then you go to 2022 to 2024, where this is where we are right now, where the Supreme Court that we currently have strikes down affirmative action in higher education. And then what we knew, and what I even knew, because I was still in corporate at the time when this happened, was that this started to fuel the debates about DEI in hiring and corporate policies. Okay. Now, then you start to see anti-DEI legislation and the anti-woke movement really coming about and hit its height during the election. Okay. So now, why is all of this important? Because you have to know the history of something, and most people who are against something probably don't know the history of it. So we're going through this entire thing, right? So it started with affirmative action. So let me be very clear. You don't have to believe Toya. You can go back and look at the data. You can go back to the Department of Labor Statistics if they haven't took stuff down, because they've already taken stuff down off EEOC website. But here's what I'll tell you. If you go back and look at who's entering the workforce, the primary beneficiaries of affirmative action in the 70s were white women. It ushered in white women the ability to be able to work. So that was right now, it's mainly men who were working. Okay. And then you had employment during the lower level in a lot of these lower level roles and jobs like nannies and housework. This is where still you had the lower level individuals who people of color were still working in jobs. But then what ends up happening is affirmative action ushers in, particularly white women were the beneficiaries of affirmative action when it was introduced in the 1970s. Okay. So you start to see the rise of women in the workforce, particularly white women in the workforce. And then you have more conversations about equity, right? So when we start to get into the 90s and the 2000s, now we're having conversations around equity and inclusion. And so you're starting to see this. But like, here's the thing. I don't fight with feelings. I fight with facts. So let's go to some facts for a second, because I think a lot of this conversation really is around what DEI is and what it isn't. And the narrative that makes me angry is that because you are a woman or a person of color, mind you, EEOC DEI also impacts veterans, because we had veteran initiatives. We had disability initiatives. We had LGBTQIA plus ERG, right? Things around that. It wasn't just black and brown people. Okay. And so here's where this stuff comes in, right? DEI is not about giving jobs to people who deserve them. The purpose of DEI is about creating equal opportunities to compete. This is the largest issue with the narrative around DEI. Don't mind me. I'm just kind of switching a camera really quickly so Insta doesn't look like I'm looking to the side of the head. Right? So that's what that is, right? So all that happened was DEI, it said, now you don't get to hire Billy's son, who you play golf with, just because you like him and he's a good kid. Billy's son, Bobby, has to compete. That's literally what DEI does. DEI is about giving people access to opportunities to compete. Now, if y'all feel know in the comments on LinkedIn, let me know. Insta, give me some heart emojis or whatever. So this is really where it's at. Okay. So when you think about the conversation and the narrative around DEI, is that you have a bunch of women, people of color, and people with disabilities getting jobs just because of who they are. And that's baloney. Not only is it baloney, it's illegal. It's literally illegal. In the same way that it discriminates, like you can't say somebody can't get a job because of their race, their religion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can't not hire somebody because of that. You can't hire someone because of that. It's illegal. Okay. So the narrative around that DEI is giving jobs to less qualified individuals is insane. Okay. That's not like, remember, I'm an ex-DEI executive in a Fortune 50 company. We wasn't giving jobs to people who didn't deserve them. We weren't giving opportunity. It is about giving people access to opportunities. Because what happens is typically like attracts like. Because if I am in a room, maybe with somebody who doesn't look like me, same race, same gender, they are less familiar with me. And so we tend to navigate towards what we know. Yeah. And so because we navigate towards what we know, a lot of the DEI efforts were like, hey, you know what? I know Jana's on here, so I'm going to pick on Jana, but like what basically ended up happening is we go in and we say, we look at all this talent, all this great talent. Why do these executives not know all of the good talent? And so you're identifying good talent across the board and making sure they get exposure. Right? Because DEI isn't about, once again, it's not about giving people jobs. We're not giving them away. It is about access to opportunities. You still have to compete. Don't get it twisted. All it did was open the door and cast a wider net for people who didn't normally at least have an opportunity to compete for a seat at the table. That's literally what DEI was. Okay. So when we think about the narrative that follows DEI, the narrative consistently following DEI is we're giving jobs to less qualified people. And that is dangerous. Very dangerous, because basically saying it's layers to this. Number one, what you're communicating is that people of color and women or people with disabilities are only in those roles because of what they look like or what attribute of them makes them different or other. And therefore, the undercurrent is they're not qualified to be in that role. Undercurrent of the conversation that nobody wants to talk about. The conversation around DEI right now, as it pertains to politicians, this has nothing to do with your political stance. If you want to talk about politics, holla at me in the DMs. I can talk that all day too. I'm specifically talking about DEI. The narrative that is dangerous around DEI right now is that people who are against it are stating that people are less qualified because they are other. And that is a very dangerous narrative. You are basically saying that if I'm an executive and I'm a woman or a person of color and I'm in that role, I'm not in that role because I'm qualified and I earned it and I got receipts. I'm only in the role given to me. Trash. And so that is the problem with that narrative. Now, here's what I'll say. You have to compete. I believe in merit-based. I'm not against merit-based promotions. But the reason why we had DEI in the first place is because little Bobby, who plays golf with, whose person plays golf with his daddy Billy, was getting promoted because of who he knew, not because of what he had done. And it's a lot easier. And so I have this theory, and then I'm going to talk about what's next, because I'm going to get off of this, because I really want people to understand what you need to do next. DEI is what it is. I won't go as far as to say it's dead, but what I will tell you is you have to do something about it. And what I'm going to tell you is what we need to do about it. So here's the deal, okay? Here's how we about to break this out. Yes, Nepo babies, 100%. Here's the thing. I see Nepo babies. I absolutely saw Nepo babies. Don't get it twisted. If you don't know us, go look me up. Very clear. All right. Nepo babies still exist. So here's the theory on all of this. Reason why, and I'm going to get into some data, and then we're going to talk about what's next. Okay. Here's the deal. The big thing about DEI is this. What started to happen was you have proven versus potential. Okay. So when you have proven versus potential, what happens is in the workforce, often it is easier to see potential in people who look like you or you can identify with. And so because oftentimes you have less women, you have people of color. I'm coming from the tech industry, which means that number is a lot higher. So what started to happen was you had people who were being promoted based on potential and they were not proven. And what started to happen was typically if you were other, you were promoted on proven and not potential. To see this happen time and time again. Yeah, I got to be comfortable that this person can do the job. But little Bobby is unproven and was still getting promoted. This was the issue. This is not a knock at it, because I figured out how to do it. The goal is you got to know who's making the decisions in the room. You got to know who's having the conversations. This is behind closed doors. Nobody wants to talk about it. Who's sponsoring you? Sponsorship and mentorship are not the same thing. I'm going to keep it 100. I absolutely know I had sponsors in the room and none of my sponsors look like me. That's why my career took off. Because I understood that I knew who needed to know me so that I could make sure that I'm moving my career. I literally was promoted twice in less than 12 months. When I first started at Dell in 2017, I was 8 layers in. So I had a manager. It was me. I think I had a senior manager had a director. That director, I don't even know if she was a VP, right? Then there was an SVP, then there was a president. Like, I'm talking, I was deep in that company. When I left, I was an L1, 2, 3. I was an L4, which means I was 4 people removed from Michael Dell in the org chart. Now, our org was a lot flatter than most, but it goes to show you, I was way deep in. I was like 8 and then L4. Why? Because you have to understand who knew me. Who knew me? The COO. Who knew me? The chief digital officer. Who knew me? Executive VPs that were all in HR, and I had shown that I had done great work. I had receipts. So these are the things that you have to know and understand how this is. Yes, Carla Harris talks about sponsorship. If you have not seen the Carla Harris video on sponsorship, please go watch it, because that is how decisions are made. I don't need DEI. I'm telling you, you don't need DEI. It doesn't matter. They can cut it, but what they can't cut is who you are and what you bring to the table. They can't take that away from you. They can't take that away from you. Which brings me to my first point. What do you need to do? You need to invest in yourself. Invest in yourself. Do you hear me? You'd be amazed. I literally, right now, straight up, I put on all my socials. I'm giving away 30 minutes with me for free. I just want to understand, have a conversation with you. Where do you want to go next in your career? And I only had a few people take me up on that offer. I think that's crazy. I literally don't want anything. If you think I'm a good person and like, yo, I want to work with you more, cool. If you don't, cool. I guarantee you'll at least leave with a partial plan of what you need to do next. I'm giving away 30 minutes of my time and people aren't biting. It's crazy. Invest in yourself. Don't wait for these companies. Right now, AI is not going away. You should have working knowledge of AI. You should have working knowledge of prompting. You should have working knowledge of all of these things. If you don't, you will find yourself unmarketable in the next year, if not sooner. AI is absolute. You've got to know. You've got to know, especially because right now, if you understand AI, you can actually produce more than your counterparts who don't. You got to invest in yourself. I can't stress this enough, y'all. I can't. Invest in yourself. That's part 1. Invest in yourself. You have to, because here's what happens. This is why it's important to invest in yourself. And I wrote all this down. Y'all, I literally thought about writing this like this morning, straight up. Why do you need to invest in yourself? Number 1, systems can change, policies can change, but your skills, your knowledge, your network are assets that nobody can take away. Period. So you've got to make sure that you are always learning. It doesn't matter if systems and policies, like right now, people are upset about DEI going away because it's a policy. But they can take away a policy. They are within their rights as organizations and companies to remove a policy or a system that they don't want anymore. Keep in mind, once again, you ain't working at this company because they love to do what they love to do. You're working at companies because they're capitalists. Don't get it twisted. Cash is still king. Right? Like, they're capitalists. Don't get this twisted, y'all. Okay? So you have to think of yourself. Be a capitalist for you. Be a capitalist for you. Right? Which is literally my next point, which is be a capitalist, not just a consumer. This is the other thing. So number 1, invest in yourself. This is what's next. You've got to invest in yourself. I have never not in myself and been like, oh man, that was a waste. That's part of the reason why I was able to compete the way I can, because I invest in myself. And what I am talking about is, this is for my Black women. Stop going to school and getting these degrees. Get certifications and experience and build your network. We don't need more. You don't need to amass more debt. Get certifications. Understand what's pertinent to where you're trying to go. Get your certifications. Take the courses that you need to allow you to compete. That's how you invest in yourself. Stop getting these degrees, man. Stop going into debt. I'm telling you, and I'm somebody who's all but dissertation for my doctorate. I'm telling you from experience. Yeah, you call you doctor, but doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Invest in yourself. Be a capitalist, not a consumer. Don't be focusing on what other people are doing or creating and figuring all these things out. Leverage your knowledge in your to generate wealth. Not money, but wealth. This is wealth. Remember, you are working wherever you're working because that person is a capitalist and that person is wealthy. Yes, yes, and amen. Can I get some heart emojis? Can I get some thumbs up or something like that? Right? This is what I'm telling you. They're capitalist. Okay? So what does that look like for you? That means invest in your career. Look at your finances. Understand your network. Your net worth is your network. Right? All of those things. That's what's up, Cindy. You finishing your master's degree to be able to provide patient care from a nurse practitioner standpoint. Yo, that's on point. Now, there are certain industries that do require higher levels of education. I appreciate that in healthcare. But some of us are getting degrees that don't yield in the market. Know your market. Public in the public space, in the health space, those degrees actually do play a difference in your career, but some of them don't. They don't. Right? So here's the thing. You've got to be a capitalist, not a consumer. Look at your career, the trajectory of your career, know your finances, know your network. Your net worth equals your network. People talk about that all the time. Know and understand what your network is. If you're not in this LinkedIn game, you tripping. Holler at me, send me a DM. I will tell you, I will literally show receipts. I took a LinkedIn course from this dude and it has been a game changer. Get in LinkedIn, know and understand. Thanks, Jen, for joining. Right? So that's one. So don't be just a consumer. You have to shift your focus to being a producer. It's a side business. It's investing in stocks. It's monetizing a skill. It's turning knowledge into an asset like books or courses or coaching or consulting. You can be a capitalist. This is where, once again, you got to think about this. Your success is not dependent on policy. In my mind, this is probably unpopular opinion, DEI has been dead. Like, it's why I'm not in anymore, because I saw it. I started to see it at the exit of 45, and they were laying the ground, right? They were laying the groundwork for it, okay? We started to see all of these things overturning, and so I took a pivot in my career. I wanted to move away from DEI. And the reason why, and I'm going to get to my third point here in a minute on what's next or what you need to do next. Okay. My third point is this. I mean, not my third point. The reason why I moved away from DEI, there's a couple things. Number one, the success of DEI is dependent on the culture. If the culture of the organization is not actually that they want to create an equitable workforce and be inclusive, DEI is dead. It's DOA. DEI is DOA. If your company is actually doing it because they feel they have to do it, not because it's the right thing to do and they know and understand it. That's number one. That's one of the reasons why I walk, because organizations placeholder. Ask me how I know. Holler at me offline. Right? That's number one. That's one of the reasons. Number two, in order for DEI to work, you have to be willing to invest in your leaders. I've never had to have All cameras. I'm looking at several right now. All cameras. Let me keep it 100 with you. I have not ever had to have a conversation about DEI with good leaders. Never. I've never had to have a conversation. Not a single conversation with a good leader about DEI. Ever. Ever. So companies who are not willing to invest in their leaders or require their leaders to invest in themselves, run. Not only bump DEI, like, you have good leaders, you have great company. You have great company because you have great leaders. And then that's when the profits and come. I have a whole theory around that. Not going to get into it. So that was another reason. So the culture has to be intact for DEI to be successful. Top down, not bottom up. I like ERGs, but you don't have power in ERGs the way that you have when it's coming top down. You know how I know? Because most of these companies abandoned DEI. That directive came from the top. You think companies can just get rid of DEI policies from the HR org? That came from the top. If you're seeing DEI shrink in your company, yeah, I said what I said. It came from the top. And so a lot of seeing organizations go in, either they're putting people in place in those organizations that they can control, that they can go in and they can figure out somebody who's maybe a little bit more muted, less passionate. I've seen it. Okay. I've seen it. So this is where you gotta go. Right? Here's the other thing. So let's talk about stats real quick. We got to talk about this, because the whole narrative around this anti-DEI, anti-woke, blah, 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 we're giving jobs to a bunch of diverse people. So got some stats, and then I'm number 3, right? Let's talk about stats, and then I'm going to talk about number 3. Okay? So here's the deal, okay? What's up, Charmaine? Here's the deal with this. All this anti-DEI stuff. Let's just talk about it, okay? In the actual workforce, okay? In the actual workforce, and I'm specifically talking in the tech industry because that's the industry I came from, but you can also look up actual stats. Hold on, I'm pulling them up. Give me a second, okay? So when we talk about, oh snap, I'm going to have to pause all the stuff because my kid is calling. Y'all, this is life. Hold on one second. This is life. Okay, here we go. I don't even know if that was paused on Insta. So here's the deal. Here's where we're at. We've got to look at, and I've got to rush, I got to go give him a baby, but here's the deal, okay? We look at the data. Women only for 10% of all jobs in the US. 47.3%, 22.6% in tech. Okay. When we look at in 2022, Black employees made up 7.6% of the work population. Hispanic employees made up 9.5% in the tech sector. In 2022, Black employees made up 7.6%. Hispanic employees made up 9.5%. Usually the Asian demographic actually pushes up towards 20 to 30, depending on the company. And then the rest, there's a handful of others, and then okay. So when we're talking about all this DEI stuff and people are getting jobs or taking jobs or all of these other narratives, we have to be mindful. I will tell you, I worked at a big Fortune 50 company, poured lots and lots of money into DEI. Then less money, then less money. You hear what I'm saying? Either way, as much as we did with employee resource groups, with partnerships, with programs, with mentorship, with employee resource groups doing development programs, diversity hiring, making sure, and when I say diversity hiring, I mean going to HBCUs and sourcing from the schools where these talents are, minority serving institution partnerships, Hispanic serving institution partnerships, all of the things that we have done. We've done all the things. Let me be very clear. We never made a 1% move on the needle in either demographic. Maybe Hispanic. Black, never. Don't believe me? Go look up the diversity reports. This is especially for the people who are anti-DEI. Go look up the data. We weren't making leaps and bounds and jobs. You're still talking, some companies are still less than 5%, especially tech companies. Most tech companies are still sitting sub 7% Black employees in the tech industry. We make up a large majority, like if not double that in just actual US population. Once again, I don't fight with feelings. I fight with facts. Go look up the data. Most companies, well, now they probably won't, but most companies publish their diversity reports. Go look them up. Go Google them. See, as all of this stuff is being done, the progress is not what you think it is. What you may be seeing, you may see a few more people squeaking through because they're getting the access they're getting, but the jobs ain't being given. Okay, and I got to roll. Last thing, here's the deal. Invest. That's number one. You need to be more capitalist, take on a capitalist mindset, not just a consumer mindset. The third thing, okay, this is very, very important. Okay, invest in yourself, be a capitalist, not just a consumer, is build your own table. Build your own table. Because it doesn't matter, right? If existing systems no longer prioritize DEI, your best response is to create spaces where DEI are valued and practiced. Where do you do that? You do that with you start figuring out if, hey, maybe I don't need to be in this company no more. But at the end of the day, ownership is the ultimate leverage. So either launching a business, creating a professional group, mentoring, creating content that highlights diverse voices. You do not have to wait for a seat at someone else's table. You build your own and invite other people. If you don't want me at your table, I don't want to sit at your table anyways. Let me keep this really quick. Real clear. If you don't want me at your table, I don't want to sit at it anyways. Build your own table. Build your own table. Do you hear me? It doesn't matter. Y'all hearing me? You don't need DEI. You don't, I'm telling, like, is it great? Yes, it is an absolute business imperative. Companies that are more diverse, this is a McKinsey study on this, they perform 27% better. They're more profitable. They're more innovative. I think it's one of the reasons why Apple is not abandoning DEI, because they know and understand the business imperative. Companies that are more diverse make more money. Period. Point blank. That's not Toya. That's not Toya talking. That's the data. Okay, that's the data. The data is saying and showing. All right. That's the deal. All right. Invest in yourself. Be a capitalist and not a consumer. Build your own table. And this is where I'm going to end. And I talked about this earlier. If you're watching this on replay, whatever, this is what I want to offer you. Hit me up in a DM. I'm probably going to do a different version for YouTube. But here's what I'm telling you. I'm going to give you a link. This link is going to give you 30 minutes. Holler at me. Up 10 people, 10,000 people. That's the goal of, I've pivoted my company completely because I'm really passionate about this. Catalyst Life Company. The sole purpose is to help people redefine success on their terms. And how do you do that? That's what this conversation is. Hit me up on DM. I'd love to have a 30-minute conversation. If nothing else, you'll at least figure out one thing you can do next. That's what I'm offering. But I'm telling y'all, do not wait for a seat at the table. Either take it or build your own. Y'all feel me? Either take it or you don't need anybody's permission. Invest in yourself. Be a capitalist, not just a consumer. And if you can't find a table, build your own and invite people to it. Okay? That's all I got. Peace. I got to go. I got to cut all this stuff off. Got to go. And here we go. Peace out.